over hundreds of days of being in the scaling trenches, over $100,000 invested in education, tons of masterminds pulled up to in 2025, conversations with 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs, a lot of the people who you see on socials doing $5 million months. I have compiled some lessons and I'm back to document and share what I'm learning as I'm scaling my company past 500K a month. So, without further ado, let's get into everything I learned in 2025 from bringing on 35 sales reps across 3 different companies, which, if you don't know, I dropped 2 of them to go all in on one info product slash coaching program. So in this video, I'm going to share these lessons. So I brought on 25 setters, 13 closers, 4 managers, which totals in 35 reps. And you may be looking at that, wait, that's actually 42 reps. It's because some people went from setter to closer to manager and so on. So on top of that, we cash collected an aggregate of $4 million at around 50, it was like 55% profit margins after my fee. Granted, I take an additional 15% on top of that, so it's like 65% profit margins. I just want to be transparent about margins because there are a lot of people scaling and saying, oh yeah, I hit $1 million in a month, but they're only taking home 200K of that. So yeah, margins are super important. A little over, or like right around $3.5 million of that 4 million coming from one company alone. So here are some processing records just so you can see January through December 31st, 2025. Bang, bang, bang. Some different processors. Of course, you know, we've got other financing options, crypto, Venmo, PayPal, whatever, other setups. So these are just like the main ones. Anyways, let's get right into it. Lesson number 1 is that setters need to be hungry and closers need to be skilled. I came to this realization in March 2025 when we had 3 setters on the team. One of our setters sounded really good on the phones and had amazing sales training. He got trained by one of my boys who is just an amazing closer, really, really solid at what he does. And this setter sounded great on the phone. He had perfect intonation, perfect pauses, extremely natural to talk to. He was someone who, he was just a setter on my team, but I love having conversations with him. We weren't even like especially close. Like I like him as a person, but it's not like we're super close friends. But I just, whenever he would call me, I just loved talking to him. Like he sounded great on the phone. He was a skilled salesman. And in this scenario, we'll call him Adonis because I don't want to name drop. And we had another setter on the team who just sounded like a regular guy. He didn't sound like an idiot, but he didn't sound especially great either. He really just sounded like a regular person. I would say, if anything, he kind of sounded a little monotone and nothing, like there's nothing special about him. Yet for some reason, he more than 3x the output of this other setter, Adonis. Literally 3x him. It was 100K cash collected versus 30K cash collected during this 1 month time frame back in March. So I guess I just put Jeffrey here. We'll just call this person who sounds like a regular guy, we'll call him Jeffrey. And I was sitting there with my top closer, who then went on to become my sales manager. I was like, why the fuck is Jeffrey outperforming Adonis to such a crazy extent? And Adonis has over a year of setting experience, tens of thousands of calls, thousands of hours behind the phone. Genuinely sounds like a savant on the phone. Yet Jeffrey is outperforming Adonis. Why is this? It's because of speed and volume. So Jeffrey was on the phones from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day. He didn't take lunch breaks. He didn't take dinner breaks. He'd literally wake up, get straight to the phone. He just put in way more volume. And Adonis would start dialing maybe around 11 a.m. most days. He'd kind of sleep in. Some days he'd start at 9 or 10, but other days he'd start at 11. He'd maybe take an hour break for lunch. Then he'd work till 5, maybe take another hour or 2 break for dinner. He'd dial a bit more in the evening. Nothing too crazy. So it's not like he was slacking off. He could have for sure gone harder, but he wasn't necessarily slacking off like crazy either. But he'd, kind of fraud his way to our KPI of 200 dials, whereas Jeffrey was ripping 400 dials per day and was always the first to reach out to brand new leads. You could never beat him to a new lead that opted in. So takeaway from this is that speed and volume are really the only things that matter as a setter, as long as your setter doesn't sound like an idiot, of course. Now, this was a massive, massive, massive turning point for me. And from now on, I really only hire for hunger when I bring a setter on. Now I'm able to do this because I sell a business opportunity to anywhere from the main company I'm working with right now, anyone from 18 to 25 years old. So we're able to find young, hungry people who really only care about improving. And so that's what we hire for setters, and that's worked super well for us. And again, the caveat is like ideally they sound good on the phone as well. And then, training a setter is really not that hard. It's way more important to hire a setter for work ethic and hunger rather than skill. However, with closers, I never, ever, ever hire a raw closer. I always hire for talent when I'm bringing a closer on the team. So the reason why this is how it is on a setting call, it's very rare that you have to battle someone and like arm wrestle them into booking a closing call. It's really just simply like ask them a series of questions to make sure like, hey, what sparked your interest in this? Da, 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 da. Would you want to hop on a call with our head of enrollment who can, lay out more of a roadmap for you to reach your goals? That's really not a hard ask. Now, of course, there's more that goes into a setting conversation. There's definitely some skill involved to make sure that they end up being interested in a call and showing up to that call. But it's really just a 5 to 15-minute conversation with low stakes. However, on a closing call, you have to battle with years of built-up limiting beliefs, convince someone to take action on their goals that they've been scared to pursue their whole life, and get them to pull out their credit card and pay thousands of dollars in less than 60 minutes. And then do that 8 to 12 more times throughout the day and do that every single day. That requires a lot more skill. Now, if you take a closer with years of experience under their belt with someone and put them against someone with zero sales experience, you have them face off. They each take 12 calls per day. It's going to be a night and day difference. It might, like, if the person with zero sales experience takes 12 calls, they might close one or two of them just because they're lay downs. The person with sales experience, they have 12 calls. Let's just assume they all show. He'll probably close 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, depending on, the warmth of the traffic, how good the closer is, etc. But it can very real way be 3x plus difference just because of the skill. Now, if you do the same thing with setting, assume they're on the same amount of calls, the same warmth of calls, the difference will be pretty marginal. Like, the process is pretty simple to follow, and it's not like you're going to get that many more bookings by being significantly more skilled on the phones. So yeah, that was pretty much the lesson learned from Adonis and Jeffrey, and then later on bringing on more closers and realizing the massive, massive skill gap that closers can have. Now, another kind of bonus points is ideally onboard closers who all come from an amazing coaching program, not an average coaching program. There are so many high-ticket sales coaching programs that suck, that are so bad that the coach in there has no idea what they're talking about. They barely made any money as a closer. And then they just are like, hey, we'll place reps on your offer. Steer clear of those. There are tons of those. Find a coaching program that is genuinely amazing, where the coach has been in high ticket sales for a while. They know what they're talking about. They train closers who sell to your ICP, and it's a night and day difference in skill level. And the other bonus is that these reps will already have ongoing coaching inside of that program, and it's just proof that they're fully committed. All of our reps have invested over 5 figures into their education. So not only are they good, but they're also this is their entire life. They show up every single day to this. And it's clear whenever one of my one of my reps, he was my top dialer, and he had taken a couple closing calls, and unfortunately, like as of now, we have 5 closers on the team. We didn't have the lead flow to support 6, and he was really hungry and he was ready to grow. So I referred him to one of my friends' companies, and this friend was like, "Holy shit, this is an insane closer! Like I've never had a closer like him," which is funny because he would have been the worst closer on our team at the time. Um, and it just goes to show like the massive difference you can find in skill level as a closer, and how high ROI it is to find an amazing coaching program to source your reps from. So highly recommend this. And I am going to reference stuff like this, like coaching programs, software, etc. And I'm not going to drop any names because I don't want to associate my brand with any of these. And you can really just like find your own online. Like there are plenty out there. So yeah. Lesson number 2 is that setters need more accountability than closers. A lot more. So here's a visual representation of a closer's calendar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 calls. Actually 12 calls that day. Anywhere from 8 to 12 calls every single day. Sales calls, follow-up calls, meetings, etc. They have a packed calendar. And a setter's calendar, of course, they're going to have meetings on there. I just kind of screenshot an empty calendar for hyperbole. But a setter's calendar is pretty blank. They don't have non-negotiable closing calls to show up to. And if you look at the main job of a closer, it's just take warm calls on the blocked off slots in your calendar. Not too hard. Setter's main job is get in the trenches, dial leads who tell you to fuck off and say, "Who are you? I don't know who you are. Why are you calling my number?" And get slapped in the face all day long and generate their own bookings. Not only is this a much more difficult, mentally taxing job, but there's also not the accountability of just showing up to calls in your calendar every single day. You have to go out there and fight for your own calls. So, yeah, that's exactly what I just said. Now, closers, yeah, I also just said this. And, yeah, I mean, like, if you're a closer, and any closer on my team who has human decency, which all of them do, they're like, "Oh my God, I'd feel so terrible if I miss a closing call." And they pretty much know if they like they know that the business owner is spending their own money to put those calls on the closer's calendar so that the closer can eat, the business owner can eat. The closer would feel terrible no showing one of those calls. Like that just wouldn't happen. It's not even in their consciousness. However, if you're a setter and you're just like, "Oh, I'm not going to dial for 15 minutes. I'm going to go eat," whatever. There's no exact time where you're supposed to show up. You just have 16 hours in a day, and you need to figure out what to do with them when you're going to dial. So that requires a lot more accountability, a lot more hands-on. They need to have eyes on them at all times. Now for closers, there is more accountability outside of just closing calls, right? There's the pre-call, like for us, we make a group chat pre-call. The closer sends a voice note. There are follow-ups, not only to follow up with no-shows and no-closes, but also to follow up with students who end up joining the program and say, "Hey, do you want to stick around longer? Do you want to join this more exclusive thing we have?" Right? And then for setters, they're accountable for outbound dials and sets as well as pre-call confirmations. And like we've been over, it's very easy for a setter to slack off or basically fake or fraud their dials and hours worked. And it's easy for a closer to do the same with their pre-calls and follow-ups, but it's really not as hard to, or it's not as easy, like you can't really slack or fraud with the closing calls like we've been over. The difference is if you're a closer and you're not really on top of your pre-call, you're not really on top of your follow-ups, you're not really on top of retention and ascension, that's not necessarily going to tank the business. As long as you're showing up to your closing calls and you're closing at a high percentage, you're going to do pretty well. But if you're a setter and you're not consistently hitting 200, 300 dials a day, that's a 3x difference in output. So setters being lazy genuinely will tank your business. And the solution to this is have more reporting, have more incentives, and have guide rails. So for one, get a dialer software that shows hours worked in dials. That's really all you need to see, is how much time are they actually spending on the phones and on the job, and how many dials are they actually doing. That's about it. That's all you need to see. Don't just go based on their word. Hey, how many hours did you work today? How many dials did you do today? They're going to lie. We're humans. We're naturally incentivized to want to look good in the eyes of the people who we're working with. So we're going to lie. So make sure that there's no way for them to lie. Have clear reporting around their hours worked and their dials. And if they don't hit their KPI consistently, they're off the team. And for us, our KPI is 200 dials a day and minimum 5 hours worked every single day. Aside from, we actually intentionally said, I mean, some setters who are just extremely hungry, they work every single day, but we kind of recommend that our team takes, half our setting team takes 1 weekend day off, the other half takes the other weekend day off. We've found that helps with output throughout the rest of the week. And we also just find that naturally on weekends, we tend to have a pretty significant dip in lead flow as well as pickup rate. So yeah, side note. Anyways, on top of clear reporting and clear accountability with KPIs, we also have bonus incentives to increase output. So we have this thing called the cash games, where they make extra money for doing the extra inputs, which I'll get into the specifics of this later in the video, but it is a really, really cool solution. Now, on top of that, closers for the stuff that there isn't as much inherent accountability for follow-ups and pre-call, we also tie that in with the cash games. So again, I'll get into that later. But like I said, humans are naturally self-interested no matter how benevolent we are. So create incentive structures, and the most influential leaders understand how basic human incentives work, and they are masters at aligning incentives to get the most output out of their team members. And finally, create a virtual office space where it's impossible to fraud. So on top of the detailed reporting of hours and dials, there are daily meetings, there are beginning of day reports, there's an end of day report, and then we also have them send in the channel just super simple. Like, we're a massive fan of simplicity. In the dialer channel, they'll just say how many dials they did and how many calls they booked. That's it. They have to manually type send in Slack every single day. It's not an EOD form where they can kind of hide on the back end with it. They have to manually send it in the Slack. Hey, I did 200 dials today. I booked 5 calls. And if they're under KPI, they're literally manually telling the whole team, hey, I slacked off today. So, and the other, kind of guide rail is just have an extremely active Slack. Activity is contagious. All right, we are now on to lesson 3, which is that human patterns tend to repeat themselves. So some wise guy said history often repeats itself, and that tends to be the case. People can change. It's 100% possible to change. That's what sales is all about. It's about helping people change. However, patterns still tend to repeat themselves, and it's not your responsibility to wait for that change to occur. If someone on your team is inconsistent now, it's probable that they'll be inconsistent in the future. If a setter doesn't show up for a day and they're like, no, sorry, I had family stuff going on, like I'll be active from now on. And then the next week they're like, oh, sorry, I had to drive my brother to school, or I had to do, like, it'll be the most random thing, and it'll happen every week or every other week. It's just a pattern that repeats itself. It's bullshitting. It's bullshitting so they can take time away from work most of the time. You can tell if someone is genuinely on the ball or if they're just like taking time away. So you may not, like, for one, you may not have set the right expectations on onboarding and just like their first time coming on the team. So that's okay. You can reset those expectations and say, hey, I need you to show up every single day. Just realign expectations. Make sure you guys are on the same page. Make sure there's no gray area and it's 100% clear what is expected of them. So give people a second chance, but don't give them a third. If you realign expectations, they're clear on it, and then they're still being inconsistent, they're still not showing up, they're still missing EODs or BODs, that pattern's just going to repeat itself, right? And sometimes what it takes is really for them to get slapped in the face, say, hey, like, I need you to find a new team because you're not showing up and doing these basic admin tasks we need you to do. And then that will create the positive change that's needed in them. And then on their next team, they'll show up and they'll do those admin tasks. Another thing is, don't overlook red flags in people. Just because someone's your top closer doesn't mean they can get away with insulting prospects. We have this channel in our Slack called Calls Updates, where basically it's basically just like call notes. So whenever they're on with a new prospect, they'll say like, hey, I'm on with this prospect, so the setters know. And then after the call, they'll send call notes on how the call went, if it resulted in a close or not, if it wasn't a close, why it wasn't a close, etc. And some closers will literally just say, on with John, this guy's a retard. And we don't tolerate that. You're not insulting prospects. I mean, for one, these are people who are genuinely trying to help here. And for two, it's just, it doesn't align with our values. And for two, you're going to close less deals, because if you get mad at the prospects, you need like, getting mad at prospects does not get you closer to the sale, right? That's a bottom line. Sales is massively about mindset and about energy, which I'll get into in a little bit. So yeah, if you're insulting prospects, lying on sales calls, saying you get a refund guarantee, saying that, oh, you'll get one-on-one calls with the coach when in fact it's a group coaching program, or showing up late to meetings, or just overall being selfish. Like, don't overlook that just because they're doubling the cash collected of all your other closers. Unless, caveat, use your own judgment, because sometimes there is a time and a place where it's like, all right, this guy sucks. Like, this closer's a pain in the ass, but I just need to tolerate it for the time being. But most of the time, you tolerating all this poor behavior is the reason they're your top closer, because they're stealing from everyone else on the team. And all your other closers, basically it hurts their energy, because they're like, wow, why are they giving this guy more leads? He's an asshole, whatever. And the instant that you let go of that toxic closer, the rest of the closers are going to shine more. So don't be rooted in scarcity and keep toxic reps on your team. Lesson number 4 is, don't change shit all the time. This is a screenshot of August 28th through September 14th, so about a 2-week time frame, where I split tested 9 things. That's an average of 1.5 split tests every 2 days, something like that. So first off, you should never split test the same thing more than once every 72 hours, because you need to wait for data to come in. Testing too quickly gives you statistically insignificant data, so you don't know what's actually working or not. You need to wait until more data comes in before you can make a decision of whether or not to keep that test. Now, we kind of follow this rule because we're alternating between like the paid traffic funnel and the organic traffic funnel. But at the end of the day, our sales team is still talking to all these different leads from both funnels. So all these different changes, all these different processes are just confusing the people on our team. So every tweak, like I just said, every tweak you make in the funnel process, etc., confuses your team and slows down their output. So you should only make a change if there's a guaranteed massive output / upside. All right. Now in October, I'll just give an example of this. October, we had a 36.64 show rate, as you can see here. Disgustingly terrible show rate. Imagine that. You book 100 calls, only 36 of those calls end up showing. That's terrible, right? Now, during this time frame, we're testing all these different things to try and get show rate up. Like, what could be going wrong? We're testing some crazy shit. We're even throwing out ideas of like, what if we go on Amazon and order a book to them before their call? Or what if we get them a Starbucks gift card? And believe it or not, one of my old friends / mentors started sending Starbucks gift cards to people pre-call, and I guess it had a very meaningful lift in show rate. But still, in my opinion, these are some pretty like out there ideas that have a lot of operational drag and definitely extra cost. Like each Starbucks gift card, if we're sending a $10 gift card to everyone pre-call, that adds up in terms of like increasing cost per acquisition. So anyways, all these different tests and ideas, they felt productive, but we were really kind of just running in circles and confusing the team. Like we get very minor lifts in show rate, but even with that, we're making less money because the workflow is less efficient. And sales is all about process and efficiency, right? So finally, I just said, fuck it, no more changing random shit to get micro 5% improvements. I made one switch in the funnel. It 2x our show rate from 36% to 69.82%. And, you know, of course, it took a little bit of time for our team to adjust it first and get back to efficient workflow, but it was absolutely worth it. And I'll basically just share what this test was. Initially, we were doing inbound booking, so people fill an application, then they book a call with us, boom, and then they no-show. Instead, we changed it to they fill an application, then they get redirected to a confirmation page saying, hey, our team will call you soon. Here are all these videos answering your questions, etc. And then we would dial people and book them in. So our absolute bookings went down just a little bit. I think it was like 10-20%, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot, not a big decrease in bookings, right? Like we have a very strong outbound setting team, but a 20% decrease in bookings for a 2x increase in show rate is absolutely worth it. And not only did show rate increase, but close rate also increased because outbound bookings have a higher close rate too. They're just higher intent people. So yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably creative, you get a bunch of ideas, but you need to be disciplined. You need to spend time actually looking at the problem. Like if you just look at the problem and then you're like, oh, this is an idea, and you try that idea, that fails. Oh, what if we try this idea? Boom, try that idea, that fails. Like that is a trap that I have fallen into too many times. I'm sure you've fallen into it. You need to spend time identifying what is the main bottleneck, what is holding us back from 2xing what we're doing right now. Allocate all your resources and focus on solving that problem. Pick one problem, one solution to that problem, right? Don't try a bunch of micro solutions. Like what is the one thing you can do that will completely solve that problem? And once that problem's solved, what is that problem that once solved will cause every other problem in your business to disappear, right? Don't run around in a circle like a chicken with your head cut off. Like this one thing took 15 minutes to implement. This is after like 2 weeks. So much time testing all this random shit, creating new trainings for the team, like no major increase in show rate. And then we were just like, all right, we're gonna just like delete the inbound booker and instead redirect them to a confirmation page. And then boom, like 30 minute to an hour of work ended up 2xing our show rate. So pretty crazy how that works. Lesson number 4 is software and financing is leverage. This goes with the above theme of like what is something I can do that is low operational complexity and has a massive output. And software and financing tend to be two of those things. Now, one thing I want to get out of the way is that financing is only evil if your product sucks. I know a lot of people are very against financing. If you're against it, whatever, like that's fine. Do what aligns with your values. I believe that's what's important at the end of the day. But if I can shift that belief around financing being evil, I think financing is only evil if your product sucks. And if your product sucks, then you should probably sell something better. We sell a business opportunity offer. We help consumers start making money online. And the majority of people who join our program on financing, they have a massive fire under their ass to take action, make a change because they have limited capital to actually get going. They need to join on financing. So they have a fire under their ass to make it work. That leads to more action, more consumption of the program, and that leads to better results. And 1 in 3 people end up getting an ROI in the first 12 weeks inside the program. Many people are able to pay off their financing option before the program access expires. So I just view it as a massive win. It's something they otherwise wouldn't have been able to access, but they're able to access it with financing. And I'd say it's the vast minority of people who end up getting screwed by financing. And when that happens, it tends to be a them problem rather than a financing problem. Okay. Now, another important thing on financing is make sure that your financing solution protects you, and more importantly, make sure your product is good. I'd say they're equally as important. So we work with a number of financing options, one of which, and again, I'm not going to name drop anything because I don't want to associate my brand with any of these. But one of these financing options has especially high approval rates, pretty long financing terms, and zero protection. If someone goes into collections, they're not able to pay it off, the funds get clawed back. So we've definitely gotten we've gotten a good amount of clawbacks from this option, but it's still definitely a net positive ROI for us. Like, it makes sense for us to work with this option. However, I know someone who got fucked by working with these people, and they got like 6 figures in clawbacks. So be careful. Don't get fucked. Do your due diligence before working with any financing option. Look at fees because they tend to take a lot of fees. So if you are scaling with ad spend, or you're spending a lot on marketing and sales team commissions and whatnot, like that can add up. So make sure to do your due diligence on fees, on clawbacks, etc. Like, actually look at numbers, please. And yeah, look at what protection is, etc. And yeah, I mean, like I was talking about leverage wise, the beauty of financing, you don't need to change anything. Like, if you implement a new step in the process, that's like a whole new training you have to make for your team. But if you're just like, hey, we have this new financing option, your setters don't have to do anything different. I mean, they can just like book less qualified leads by checking their credit on the setting call. And the closers just say, hey, if you're not able to PIF, do you want to check out this financing option? Like, that's literally it. Doesn't really change anything in your process. And fun fact is, on average, financing options tend to increase the amount that your cash collects by 35% on average. So that's pretty cool. On a software should either A, allow you to do something that you couldn't have done before, so a completely new feature that helps you produce more output. Examples of this are texting people with blue messages instead of green, or being able to have reporting on how many hours your dialers are working, or another sick software I just started working with. We'll see how it goes. But basically, it shows how hot leads are. So like, the traditional thing is, oh, okay, someone opts in, you have speed to lead. That's when they're the warmest. You dial them immediately after opting in. But what happens if you can't get in contact with this person right after they opt in, and they're still consuming your content over the next few weeks? They maybe check out your funnel again. Maybe they go through a free course. All of this is being tracked on the server side because their device gets tagged. And then once they've reached like a level of heat, it'll send a message in Slack. It'll say, hey, this person just watched all these YouTube videos, went through this free course. They're probably super hot, even though they just opted in a month ago. Now is a good time to dial them. So we literally just started working with them today. We'll see how it goes, but it seems like a sick option. Number 2, sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent. So yeah, to recap, your software should either allow you to do something new that you couldn't before, or speed up your process of doing something. So rather than manually dialing a bunch of people, you power dial them. So it, makes things quicker and more efficient. Now, software changes tend to have bigger implications on the process and workflow than financing. It normally involves more training, potentially moving your entire team and a bunch of data from one software to another. But most of the time, assuming it is like do your due diligence, make sure it's actually worth it, and only change a software if it's genuinely solving a bottleneck, because sometimes you'll hear from a friend like, oh, this new software is so sick, and you'll get super enticed by it, but you probably don't actually need it. So if your software works, keep using it. Don't solve a bottleneck that doesn't exist. And yeah, on to lesson number 5, which is that fulfillment is numero uno. It doesn't matter how skilled your reps are. Conviction is always going to be super important. If you have an insanely skilled rep, but they're not convicted, they'll still perform, but conviction just trumps everything else. So better, it's just a flywheel. Better fulfillment means you'll get warmer calls because before their call, they'll have done research and they'll have found positive word of mouth online. They'll have found positive student results, positive Reddit threads, as well as the fact that you'll get calls straight up from friends referring friends, just straight up word of mouth calls. And the flywheel just goes word of mouth calls, more closed deals, better student results, more closed deals, less refunds, more conviction, more closed deals, and round it goes. And another thought that I've had, you can agree or disagree with me, but I think that organic content is like mass market word of mouth. It's like the only way to really scale word of mouth is social media is the easiest way to see what thousands of other people's opinions are of one person. And so that's why I think organic content is so cool, because word of mouth is really like the strongest needle mover in any business. And organic content is like the easiest way to scale word of mouth. So yeah. And then little fun fact about us and why our sales team was so hyper convicted is because we had over 1,000 5-star reviews on WAP. 1 in 3 students got a positive ROI within 12 weeks. And what the fuck do you think this does to sales team conviction? Obviously drives it through the fucking roof. And to the point where all of our reps are going down the rabbit hole and they're like, shit, I want to learn this business opportunity. It's pretty crazy. One of our closers, who's literally made 6 figures from closing, plans on no longer closing anymore and going all in on this biz op, which is crazy. And I'm convicted that he'll make more money from doing so. Like, it's pretty cool. Lesson number 6, align incentives. Now we'll get into the cash games, which I was teasing earlier on at the beginning of this video. Super, super cool setup that we have. Now, if you look at a typical sales team commission structure, I think out of any role in a business, closers and setters have some of the clearest incentives. Closers get 10% of cash collected, setters get 5%. Obviously, this varies, but this is a relatively standard model. Now, we all make money, right? If a closer closes a deal, you as a business owner make money, they make money, and the setter makes money. But what about the boring shit that they have to do? What about follow-ups? What about pre-call? What about showing up to meetings? What about end of day and beginning of day reports, updating the pipeline? All that shit is boring, right? And on top of that, sales is just a very monotonous job. It's super repetitive. So how do we prevent sales reps from churning, and how do we create a sense of consistent novelty so they want to show up and they're excited to work every single day, outside of just having a strong ass culture and inherently ambitious people on your team? Well, remember, the best leaders are masters of human incentives. And that's why we came up with this thing called the cash games. So the way it works, as you can see this beautiful leaderboard here, we have Team Alpha versus Team Bravo. Team Alpha is winning right now. I literally just screenshotted this. But the way it works is you split your sales teams in 2. So say you have 6 closers and 18 setters. It'll then be 9 setters and 3 closers versus 9 setters and 3 closers. And then each team fights for a cash prize. Whoever gets the most points during the cash games will win that cash prize. And rather than only awarding points for cash collected like standard commission structures do, we award points based on culture, based on inputs, based on other outputs outside of cash collected. We want to incentivize showing up, not just cash collected. So I won't break down every single rule that we have because it's very detailed, but just examples. If you show up late to meetings, you lose points. If you miss a BOD or EOD, you lose points. If you don't say good morning in the Slack every morning, you lose points. If you hit under the amount of dials for KPI, you lose points. If you don't do pre-call in time, you lose points. And then, of course, there are upside for points. If you collect more cash, you get points. If you do more follow-ups, you get points. So there are points tied around like every single key activity we want the people on our team doing. And also just like some bonus details so you can get inspiration for yours if you want to do this, is we run a new cash games every 2 weeks, and the cash prize gets awarded at the end of that 2-week period. The way we do it is it's a 2% override. So if during that 2-week period we cash collect 300K, then the winning team will get awarded 6K, which then gets evenly distributed among all the reps on that team. And then the person with the highest points will then get first pick as captain, second highest points as second pick. So let's say your name is Adonis and you are on Team Alpha and you win, and you had 40 points during this period. You then become captain, and you get to choose first who you want the other people to be on your team. It's just like a sport. And vice versa, the person who had the second amount of points will then be second pick. So we've already found, we just realigned the cash games to be more input and culture driven. And we've already seen a massive, massive ROI in it. We've already made an extra, probably, I don't have an exact number, but I know we've gotten a few extra closes in the past few days from follow-ups that we wouldn't have already gotten because our team is sending way more follow-ups. So that's been super cool to see. Lesson number 7 is that belief in the product and that you're helping people, and as well as being a human, is way more impactful than having better word tracks. So my favorite definition of sales I've ever heard is that it's simply a transfer of belief. And whoever cares most about the prospect wins. Now, the 2 best closers ever that I've ever had on my team ironically had less training than all my other closers. Like all my other closers are dogs. Like they've had tons and tons of training. They're really good at what they do. And just like the 2 people who happen to have less sales training end up collecting more cash. One of them like literally came from an offer doing $1 million a month, scaled it to $1 million a month as a number 1 closer, cash collecting 300K in a single month. He comes to our team. He is the least trained closer, but he has the highest output because he's emotionally intelligent and he cares about the prospect, more about the prospect than they care about themselves. But the biggest thing is emotional intelligence, being able to read the person on the other side of the call, not just saying stuff because it sounds good or because you feel like you're supposed to say it, but understanding why, when, and why to say different things, right? That's ultimately what sales is it's like a quick feedback loop of listening to them and then saying the right thing at the right time, right? And vice versa. Some of our closers with the most training, who knew the most word tracks and reframes, performed the worst. And they ended up getting the most payment dips and fear objections. Payment dips is when they pitch, they send the payment link, and then the prospect leaves the call. Now, why is this? It's because they didn't understand why they should say the word tracks that they did. And they pre-handled objections that didn't even exist, which caused all this friction. They did all this instead of just having a human conversation, genuinely caring and genuinely trying to help the person on the other side of the call. Now, word tracks are great, NEPQ is great, but being a human and caring about the other person is fundamentally what sales is. Like that's the foundation. And so this, in my opinion, is more important than having the right word tracks and knowing NEPQ. If you don't know what NEPQ is, it's essentially neuro-emotional programming questions. It's a type of sales that is quite effective in selling high-ticket coaching, which like all our reps are trained on this. So anyways, on to lesson number 8 is running organizations on positive reinforcement is great, but you need to let more people go. Now, this might be a relatively unique lesson for myself because I do think most sales orgs are ruled with more of an iron fist, but yeah, I'll get into that in a second. I heard a study that I forget, but basically among top companies in the entire world, the best and highest output organizations are run primarily on praise and positive reinforcement, not on punishment and negative reinforcement. So we took this to heart and we run things on entirely positive reinforcement, which is better than running things entirely on punishment, in my opinion. But punishment still needs to exist in an organization for it to flourish. Look at me being all poetic. We needed more punishment in place for missing KPIs, not showing up, etc. We have an environment where we truly invest in every single rep. Like, I'm not even the sales team manager, but I will hop on huddles with the dialers. I'll hop on huddles with the closers because I care about each person on the team, right? Like we cater to the team. We invest in the team. We show our loyalty to the team. The team shows us loyalty back. But sometimes we can be too forgiving and we let too much slide. Like, oh, it's okay if you need to miss this meeting today. Like, oh, it's okay if you didn't show up. Like, we are a company that is on track to hit $1 million a month within the next few months. And we need to start acting like it a little more. Like, we need to rule with a bit more of an iron fist. Like, one of our core values is authenticity, caring about the team members. But truly caring about your team members, just how you do in sales, is holding people accountable and calling them out on their bullshit and not tolerating low performers. Like, we want a team of high performers, and for that to flourish, we need to be toxic to low performers and basically slap our team members in the face and be like, hey, you're not showing up, and if you don't show up, you're going to need to leave. Like, that is ultimately what tough love is, and that's how we're going to scale to the next level. So yeah, like I said, our churn is near zero, which is crazy because we have so many dialers on the team and like pretty much nobody is left. We've let a couple people go from the team, but like very few. And the negative is we're not bringing out the full potential of our team members, and it's your duty as a leader to be hard on them, to bring the best out of them. And a quote that I've heard from someone is that there cannot be peace without threat of violence. There's only peace and order in civilization because people know that if they go crazy, there's violence. They will be stopped, right? So that goes hand in hand with being on a team, is there cannot be maximum output of your team members without there being a threat of them being let go from the team. All right. Final lesson. I know this has been pretty wordy, but I really want to materialize these thoughts from like 180 days, millions of dollars of cash collected, being in the trenches. So I hope you're enjoying this. But lesson number 9, give your team autonomy. This is something I feel like we do extremely uniquely. And I think some big CEOs who are killing it really like shit on this, and they're really strong for like follow the framework. No one on the team should deviate from the framework, which I 100% agree to an extent. Like, there needs to be consistency, there needs to be guide rails, there needs to be frameworks, but I think too much rigidity can hurt more than it helps. So what do I mean by this? We give our reps frameworks, we allow them to then iterate and improve upon those frameworks, and then we roll out the winners across the teams. So for example, one of our setters found that if he calls leads via FaceTime audio, the pickup rate was way higher. We didn't tell him to do that. He just started doing it because he's intelligent, creative, and he had the environment where agency was encouraged. And it resulted, we then rolled that out across the whole team, and it resulted in our company making more money. And if we didn't have that culture of agency and autonomy, then that never would have happened. Example number 2, this one's a lot smaller, but it's still meaningful. So we dial leads very quickly, like oftentimes within 2 seconds, quite literally, because of the dialer software we use. Like people click the button and like almost instantly get a call on their phone. Like click the button to submit the form. And sometimes leads will get upset. They're like, why are you calling me so fast? Like what the hell? And one of our setters, like our setters were asked in the chat, like, hey, is that anyone else getting this friction? Like a lot of people are getting kind of upset with how quick we're dialing them. And one of our setters simply just said, like, just made a joke, like, yeah, I bet you didn't expect us to call you that fast. And like, believe it or not, that just massively reduced friction to the point where like it makes a business significantly more money just by having a simple line like that. So we rolled it out across the whole team in an SOP. So that is where I am a fan of autonomy. Where I'm not is like massively deviating from the framework. Like if we do have a setter framework to follow or a closer framework to follow, and people are massively deviating or doing their own thing, that's where things can get thrown off a little bit. Like I still think processes are important, but we do encourage iterations like this that cause improvements. But also, I'm not a fan of a script. I don't think. Again, I like this is contrary to what a lot of people are preaching, but I think scripts come off as too rigid. And like I was talking about earlier, I think sales is all about being human and being natural and knowing what the check boxes are. Like, I need to get this, 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 and this out of the prospect. Then you know the framework you need to follow, you know the questions you need to ask, but you're not exactly following a rigid script to the point where it feels unnatural. Now, admittedly, that could be a skill issue. Maybe I just need to get better at writing scripts, but that's just what I've found to have the best output. And I also like have a lot of friends running 7-8 figure operations who are finding success with that. So yep. And then finally, outside of simple improvements like FaceTime audio or little lines, I'll even ask for feedback on like the funnel and shit like that from the setters. And that might sound crazy to you. Like, I know a lot of people are just like, don't listen to your setters, whatever. Um, but two things. One, Jeff Bezos, obviously one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. If you really look into the details of how Amazon was built, it was actually a fucking Herculean task. Like one of the most impressive companies ever from how it's built. Like the entire strategy is just the craziest gamble ever. Like now that they have gotten to the point they're at, they have this insane competitive moat that like no one can touch. Like definitely look into that more. But anyways, Bezos has this thing. I actually haven't even looked this up to verify. My friend just told me. But basically at meetings, he will start by having the least experienced and newest person on the team give their opinion and feedback first. And then they'll slowly work up to the more experienced and veteran people on the team. The reason for this is because if Bezos goes first and then his C-suite and then the less experienced people, they're just going to agree with what Bezos and the C-suite said. Whereas if they're asked first, they have no one to agree with. They just have to say what they're thinking. And I just think that's super brilliant. And then to like take this one step further, how I even got this with our setting team is if we go back to rolling out this new show rate tweak, I messaged in the Slack and I was like, hey guys, because our team was really quite discouraged. We were getting a bunch of calls booked in. We were having closers even kind of like gossiping and saying like, hey, has show rate always been like this? Like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around here. And like the team, like it was a genuine concern with show rate being so bad for so long. And I was just super excited because I knew that going from inbound bookings to outbounds, I knew it was going to be a massive increase. And so I just like called it out. I was like, hey guys, I have this massive new thing rolling out. I called it perfectly. I was like, it's going to 2x show rate. Who can guess what it is? Just being kind of playful. And then our setters just started guessing the most random creative shit that I never ever would have thought of. I haven't ended up implementing any of it yet, but I still remember just sitting there and being shocked at how creative and unique those ideas were and how I never ever would have thought of those on my own. And, none of them would have been the same type of improvement for show rate, but they're all pretty unique and creative ideas. So from that point on, I like to get feedback from the team when there is a bottleneck. Like if pickup rate is low, I'll then like screen share the confirmation page and be like, hey, what would you guys change about this? Um, I may not act on all of it, but I like to get ideas from other people. Um, in my opinion, if you're not getting ideas from them, from the other people on your team, it's an ego thing. But yeah, that's just my opinion. That's what this is just based on my experiences. So yeah, that's pretty much my 9 lessons. This was pretty meaty. I know there's a lot of words, and it was pretty in the weeds. But if you enjoyed it, please let me know. If you want a different type of content style, please let me know. I'm definitely going to be pushing out more lessons. Right now, we're hovering around 500K per month and have been doing so for like 7 months. So I'm really looking to break through that plateau and share all the lessons that I learned along the way with doing so. So yeah, if you have any requests on specific types of content, or like when I say specific types of content, I mean specific topics that you want covered, whether it's funnel, whether it's automations, anything like that, whether it's vendors, let me know. And if you like the more like meaty, granular written word like this, or if you want something different, just drop a comment. And yeah, thanks for your time and attention. I hope you got a positive return on it. I will catch you in the next video. Peace.